The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive station, where thousands of alien species gathered to make decisions for the galaxy. Inside the great hall, beings of crystal, gas, and scale sat in their designated seats. They spoke in worried voices about the threat that was destroying their worlds. Commander Tay sat in his small ship, hidden behind an asteroid field 3 light-years away. He watched the council station on his screens and listened to their emergency broadcasts. His dark eyes showed no emotion, but his fingers drummed on the armrest of his captain's chair. "There." "Scared," said G from the pilot seat. She was young, barely 30 years old, with quick reflexes and an even quicker mind. "The Ravagers have destroyed 12 more worlds this month." 14, corrected Day. From the engineering station. He was older than both of them, with gray hair at his temples and steady hands that could fix anything. 2 more fell yesterday. The council doesn't know yet. Tay nodded slowly. For 5 years he and his crew had watched the galaxy from the shadows. Earth had sent them to observe, to learn, to understand this vast community of alien civilizations, but always with one rule: do not make contact. Not yet. Humanity wasn't ready. Earth Command had said the galaxy wasn't ready for humanity. "Sir, they're sending out distress calls," reported Hana from the communication station. She was the youngest of the crew, still learning, but eager and bright. "Broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them." "Anyone includes us," Guy said. Turning to look at Tai, Ta stood and walked to the main view screen. Council station looked beautiful, covered in lights and elegant curves. The aliens who built it believed in harmony and balance. They believed warfare was something to be avoided, something civilized beings didn't do unless absolutely necessary. The Ravagers had taught them differently. "Pull up the human files in there." "Database," Tay ordered. Hana's fingers flew across her console. A moment later, text and images appeared on the screen. Tay read through them, his expression growing darker. The aliens thought humans were myths, old stories told on frontier worlds, tales meant to scare children. The database listed humans as unconfirmed species and probable folklore. According to the entries, humans supposedly came from a death world called Earth, where the gravity would crush most beings, where the atmosphere contained poisonous oxygen, and where liquid water fell from the sky. The descriptions got worse. Humans allegedly ate other living creatures. They spent a third of their lives unconscious. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom, yet they claimed to be apex predators on their world. The aliens had decided such a species couldn't exist. It was impossible for civilization to develop under such harsh conditions. They think we're scary stories, D said with a short laugh. "They think we're impossible," G corrected. Tay continued reading. There were reports scattered across 300 years of strain. Ships in the outer rim of Beetle. Creatures who spoke of coming from Sol. System of warnings about a species that fought wars against itself but somehow still reached the stars. Each report had been dismissed, filed away as hoaxes or misunderstandings. "Commander, we have new sensor data," Hana said, her voice urgent. "There's a Ravager fleet moving toward the council station. They'll arrive in 4 hours." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The council's defense fleet was spread thin across the galaxy, protecting 2 Many worlds with too few ships. Station had only minimal defenses. How big is the Ravager fleet? Tay asked. 50. Capital ships plus support craft, Hana replied. The station has 15 defenders. Day whistled low. They don't stand a chance. Tay stood still thinking. His orders from Earth Command were clear. Observe only. Do not engage. Do not reveal humanity's presence. Breaking those orders could cost him his career. Maybe his freedom. Earth wanted to make first contact on their terms when they were ready, but 4 hours from now, thousands of aliens would die. The Council Station would fall in Earth. Command was 6 months away by the fastest messenger ships or G prompted. Tay made his decision. Hana open a communication channel to the Council Station. All frequencies. Are you sure? Day asked. Earth Command will Earth Command isn't here. Tay interrupted. We are open the channel. Hana, the young woman's hand shook slightly, but she did as ordered. Channel open, sir. Tay took a breath. After 5 years of silence, humanity was about to speak to the Galaxy Council Station. This is Commander Tay of the human vessel. Defiant, we've detected a hostile fleet approaching your position. We are requesting permission to dock and offer assistance. They waited. Seconds stretched into a minute, then 2, maybe. They didn't receive it, Hana suggested. They received it, G said. They're probably trying to figure out if it's real. Finally, a response came through. The voice was mechanical, artificial. Computer, not a living being. Unknown vessel, your species designation is not recognized. Please provide valid identification codes. We're human. Tay repeated. From Earth Sol System, Outer Rim. We're here to help. Another long pause. Then human species. Classification mythological, probable. Hoax request denied. Maintain your distance or defensive measures will be taken. Guy turned to Tay with raised eyebrows. They think we're fake, even. Now, Day said, shaking his head. Tay's jaw tightened. Hana, send them our ship specifications, our life support readings, everything, proof we're real. Hana transmitted the data. They waited. Again, the mechanical voice returned. Data received. Analysis indicates possible elaborate deception. Council security has been notified. You are ordered to leave this sector immediately. We're trying to save their lives, Hana protested. They don't believe we exist. G said, how do you prove you're real to someone who thinks you're a ghost story? Tay stared at the Council Station on the screen behind it, invisible at this distance but very real. A Ravager fleet was approaching. In 4 hours, maybe less, the slaughter would begin. Set course for the Council Station, Tay ordered. Maximum speed, sir. They'll fire on us. Tay warned. No, they won't, Tay said with grim certainty. They don't believe we're real. You can't shoot a myth. The Defiant's engines flared to life, and the small human ship began its approach to the Council Station. Behind them, still hidden in the asteroid field, other human vessels received TA's emergency signal and began to wake their crews. In 4 hours, the galaxy would learn the truth. Humans weren't myths. They weren't folklore or scary stories. They were something far more dangerous than any legend. They were real. The Defiant approached the Council Station without permission, and alarms began screaming throughout the alien facility. Security forces rushed to their positions, weapons charged and ready. On the bridge, Tay watched as targeting systems locked onto a small ship. They're not firing, G observed her. Hands steady on the controls despite the danger. Maybe you were right, they still think we're some kind of trick, D said from his station. A hologram or a computer virus. Tay opened the communication channel again. Council station, we're coming in whether you give permission or not. We're docking at port 7 in 3 minutes. The mechanical voice responded immediately. Unauthorized docking will be met with force. You will be destroyed. Then destroy us, Tay said calmly. But we're still docking. G guided the ship toward the docking port with expert precision. The station's defense weapons tracked them but didn't fire. Tay had gambled correctly. The aliens were too confused, too certain that humans couldn't be real, to actually shoot. The Defiant's docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk. Tay stood and looked at his crew. Hana, you stay with the ship. Keep the engines ready. GD, you're with me. And remember, no sudden movements. We don't want to scare them. We're the ones who should be scared, G muttered, checking her sidearm. Walking into a station full of aliens who think we're ghosts. The three of them walked through the airlock. The station's artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air smelled strange, like electricity and flowers mixed together. An entire platoon of security forces waited for them in the docking bay, weapons raised. The aliens were unlike anything most humans had seen in person. Some were tall and made of living crystal that refracted light into rainbows. Others were clouds of gas held together by some kind of energy field, changing colors as they moved. There were reptilian beings with scales that shifted through different patterns and creatures that seemed to be made of liquid metal. All of them stared at the three humans in shock. Tay raised his hand slowly, showing he held no weapons. I'm Commander Tay. These are my crew members. G&D, we're human. We're real and we're here to help you. One of the crystalline beings stepped forward. Through a translation device, its voice came out in perfect English. This is impossible. Humans are myths. You cannot be real. We get that a lot, G said dryly. More aliens arrived, including several who wore elaborate robes marking them as council members. The crowd grew larger, all of them staring at the humans like they were seeing ghosts come to life. A particularly large reptilian alien pushed through the crowd. His scales were deep purple and his eyes were sharp with intelligence. I am Vrex, military commander of the council forces. If you are truly human, prove it. Show us this death world strength we've heard about in the myths. Tay glanced at Day, who shrugged. How do we prove we're from a heavy gravity world? Jump, suggested G with a slight smile. Tay bent his knees and jumped in the station's light gravity. He soared upward, easily reaching 3 times his own height before coming back down in a controlled landing. The aliens gasped and stepped back. Day picked up a heavy cargo container that 2 of the crystalline beings had struggled to move earlier. He lifted it with one hand, held it for a moment, then set it down gently. Our world has stronger gravity than your station, Tay explained. What feels heavy to you is light to us. This proves nothing, said another alien, this one a floating cloud of purple gas. Strength can be enhanced with technology. G pulled out a small knife from her belt. Before anyone could react, she drew it across her palm, cutting the skin. Blue blood welled up, and aliens cried out in alarm. Within seconds the bleeding slowed. G showed Them her hand we heal fast, our world. Taught us to, and no, this isn't technology, this is biology, a medical. Officer rushed forward with scanning equipment. After a moment the small, insect-like being chirped in its own language. The translation came through. Confirmed, biological healing response. Enhanced clotting factors, elevated pain tolerance, this being as this is. Consistent with death world evolution. The crowd of aliens murmured in confusion and fear. The head of the council finally appeared, a massive, crystalline being that towered over everyone else. Its voice boomed through the docking bay. I am Zoran, Chancellor of the Galactic Council. If you are truly human, explain how you survived to develop civilization. Explain how you crossed the stars with such primitive technology. The Chancellor gestured at the Defiant, which looked small and rough compared to the elegant alien vessel. Una emerged from the Defiant's airlock. She was the mission's diplomat, trained for this moment, even though no one expected it to happen like this. She wore a formal uniform and carried a data pad containing Earth's official first contact protocols. Chancellor Zoran, she began bowing respectfully. Humanity survived because we had no choice. Our world tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, storms, earthquakes, volcanoes. We learned to adapt or die. We learned to fight. And eventually, we learned to work together. Because that was the only way to survive. She held up the data pad. Earth sends its greetings to the Galactic Council. We offer our friendship, our knowledge, and our assistance in your fight against the Ravagers. Zoran's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. You speak of fighting the Ravagers with what? Your ship is small, your weapons outdated by our standards. You have no quantum shields, no antimatter weapons, no psionic networks. No, Una agreed. We have something else. We have experience. Rex laughed, a harsh sound. Experience. The Council has fought wars for a million years. Elegant wars. D. Interrupted. We've seen your tactics. You fight from a distance. You use drones and shields. You try to minimize casualties. That's honorable. But the Ravagers don't care about honor. And humans do, asked a small furry alien. No, Tay said quietly, when we need to. We fight dirty, we fight mean, we fight to win, not to look good doing it. Zoran was silent for a long moment. Finally, the Chancellor spoke. I have reviewed the mythological files on humans. They say you are violent, that you wage war on your own species, that you are dangerous. All of that is true, Una admitted, but we're trying to be better. We stopped fighting each other so we could reach the stars. We're not perfect, but we're learning. The Council cannot accept a species into our alliance based on myths and legends. Zoran declared, we need proof of your capabilities. We need Chancellor. Smaller crystalline being rushed into the docking bay. Long-range sensors have detected the Ravager fleet. They'll be here in 4 hours. Panic spread through the aliens. Officers began shouting order. The security forces dispersed, running to their stations. Zoran turned back to the humans. This discussion is over. We must evacuate the station. You should leave while you can. No, Tay said firmly. No. Zoran's voice rose in pitch, showing surprise. We came here to help. Give us 4 hours. Let us show you what humans can do. If we fail, you can evacuate then. But if we succeed, maybe you'll believe we're real. This is insanity, Rex protested. You're asking us to trust our lives to a myth. Tay met the reptilian commander's eyes without flinching. We're asking you to trust us because we're the only help you've got. Zoran looked at the small group of humans, then at the chaos spreading through the station, then back at the humans. Chancellor's crystalline body pulsed, with different colors showing internal conflict. For hours, Zoran finally agreed. Show us what humans can do. Prove you're real. We will, Tay promised. As the humans returned to their ship, G whispered to Tay, we just promised to fight 50 Ravager warships with our 3 vessels, 4 vessels, Hana said over their communication devices. I just received confirmation. Reinforcements are 3 hours out, 4 ships against 50. Day said, we're either very brave or very stupid. Tay smiled grimly. With humans, it's usually both. Back aboard the Defiant, Tay immediately contacted Earth Command. Knowing the message would take months to arrive, he sent a brief report and a request for forgiveness. Then he switched to emergency military channels and broadcast to any human ships within range. 3 responded. They had been hiding in different parts of the system, watching and waiting just like Tay. Now they were coming. The destroyer hammer will arrive first, Hana reported, reading the incoming messages. 2 hours and 40 minutes, then the Marine transport Guardian. Last will be the medical frigate Mercy. 4 ships, G said, from the pilot's seat, running calculations on her screen. Against 50 Ravager warships, the aliens are right. This is insane. Then we'd better be smart about it, Tay replied. He pulled up tactical displays showing the Council station and the surrounding space. Day, how much can you overclock our engines? The engineer thought for a moment. 30%. Increase in speed and power, maybe 40 if you don't mind the ship shaking apart. Afterward, do it. We won't need an afterward if we lose. Tay turned to G. Start planning attack runs. Ignore everything the Council doctrine says about proper fleet engagement. G's eyes lit up with excitement. You mean I can fly however I want? I mean I want you to fly in ways that would make Council pilots sick. Use every advantage our size and speed give us. While his crew worked, Tay studied everything they knew about the Ravagers. The aliens had been fighting them for years and their tactical database was extensive. The Ravagers were biological ships grown rather than built. They were tough, regenerated quickly, and fought with swarm tactics that overwhelmed defenders through sheer numbers, but they were also predictable. They always approached in the same formations, always targeted the largest ships first, always fought in ways that had worked before. They don't adapt. Tay muttered to himself. They're like ants following the same trail. On the Council station, Zoran watched the human ships with sensors. The Chancellor saw the small vessels moving in strange patterns, running tests and drills that made no sense. The Council's military advisors shook their heads in confusion. What are they doing? FX asked, standing beside Zoran in the command center. Preparing, Zoran said, though for what I cannot tell. The human ships kept practicing maneuvers that violated every rule of space combat. They flew too close to each other. They spun and rolled like atmospheric fighters. They accelerated and decelerated in rapid bursts that would disorient any crew member of a Council species. Their crews must have tremendous tolerance for physical stress, observed Thule, the chief engineer. Those movements would render most of us unconscious. In the Defiance mess hall, half the crew sat, eating a meal together, the other half slept in their bunks. The council observers couldn't understand it. Battle was approaching and the humans were eating and sleeping. Yuna explained when asked, "We need food for energy and sleep for focus. If we go into battle exhausted and hungry, we'll make mistakes. Better to rest now while we can." "You require unconsciousness to function?" an alien observer asked. Puzzled, "Everyone needs sleep," Yuna said. "Don't your species sleep? We enter low power states every few weeks, but daily unconsciousness seems like a dangerous weakness." Yuna smiled. "Maybe. But it also means we're used to our limitations. We work with them, not against them." Aboard the destroyer Hammer, Commander Sue briefed her. Marines, 200 soldiers in armor carrying weapons that made the Council's military. Historians shake their heads. Kinetic rifles that used chemical propellants to fire solid projectiles, combat knives, grenades that exploded with simple physics rather than exotic energy. Why do humans still use such primitive weapons? FX had asked when he saw the equipment manifests. "Because they work," Sue had replied simply, "and because when your fancy energy weapons fail, when shields collapse and power dies, our weapons still fire. Simple is reliable." Now Sue looked at her Marines, seeing their determined faces. They knew the odds: 50 Ravager ships, thousands of enemy fighters, 4 human vessels in a barely defended station. "We're going to board one of their capital ships," Sue told them. "Hit them where they don't expect it. The Council fights from a distance. We're going to get up close and personal." A young Marine named Nari raised her hand. "Ma'am, won't the acid and toxins inside Ravager ships kill us?" "Only if we let them," Sue said. "Our suits are rated for 30 minutes in hostile environments. We'll be in and out in 20. We breach, we destroy critical systems. We extract. Simple, nothing's ever simple," another Marine muttered, but there were nervous laughs. It was an old military saying, one that helped them deal with fear. On the Defiance bridge an alarm sounded. Hana checked her sensors and her face went pale. "Sir, the Ravagers just dropped out of hyperspace. They're ahead of schedule." "How far out?" Tay demanded. 90 minutes. "They're coming in fast," Tay cursed quietly. Their reinforcements hadn't arrived yet. The Hammer was still 40 minutes away. They'd have to start the fight with just the Defiant. He opened channels to the Council station and the incoming human ships. "All units, the enemy has arrived early." "Hammer, what's your ETA?" 38 minutes came the reply from Commander Quan. "We're pushing our engines as hard as they'll go." Guardian and Mercy. 55 minutes for Guardian, 70 for Mercy. Tay did the math quickly. They'd have to hold off the Ravagers alone for at least 30 minutes, one small scout ship against an entire fleet. "Gee, get us moving." Head straight at them. Pilot's hands froze on the controls. "Straight at them, sir. There are 50 capital ships. I know, that's why they won't expect us to charge them." Ta's voice was calm, but his heart was racing. This was the gamble. This was where they proved humans were real. On the Council station, alarms blared. Soren watched as the single human ship accelerated toward the incoming Ravager fleet. "They're attacking," Vic said in disbelief. "One ship is attacking an entire fleet. They're committing suicide," another officer said, but Zoran watched more carefully. The human Ship wasn't flying in a straight line. It was weaving, dancing, moving in patterns that made tracking it difficult, and it was faster than anything its size should be. What are they doing? Thus wondered aloud, aboard. The defiant Tay stood behind G's chair, watching the Ravager fleet grow larger. On their screens, the ships were ugly, organic things that looked like they were made of bone and meat. They moved in their standard formation, the larger ships in the center, smaller vessels surrounding them. Target the scout ships. On the edge, Tay ordered, hit and run. Don't stay in one place. Understood, G said. Her fingers flew across the controls, entering weapons range in 30 seconds. Day called up from engineering. Engines overclocked to 35%. We're running hot, but she'll hold 20 seconds. G counted down. Tay gripped the back of her chair. Everything depended on the next few minutes. If they could survive, if they could show the aliens what humans could do, maybe they'd have a chance. 10 seconds. The Ravagers opened fire, filling space with bioplasma and acid projectiles. GJ jerked the ship sideways, rolling and diving, dodging with reflexes faster than any computer. 5 seconds. The station's observers watched in amazement. The human ship shouldn't have been able to avoid that much fire, but it slipped through the barrage like water through fingers. Firing, G shouted. The Defiant's weapons, primitive kinetic cannons and missile batteries, opened up. Solid projectiles slammed into the nearest Ravager scout ship, punching through its organic armor. The ship shuddered and died, its biological systems failing. One down. Hana reported. 49 to go. G spun the ship around, already targeting the next enemy. Behind them, the destroyed Ravager exploded, sending chunks of organic matter spinning through space. On the council station, Zoran leaned forward. Did they destroyed a Ravager scout with one pass, Rex confirmed, his voice showing respect for the first time. Impossible. Not impossible, Zoran said quietly. Just human. The Defiant danced through the Ravager fleet like a knife fighter in a crowd of giants. G pushed the small ship to its limits, spinning and diving while Tay called out targets. They destroyed 2 more scout ships before the Ravagers adapted their formation to chase the irritating pest. They're boxing us in, G warned, seeing enemy ships moving to surround them. Then we go through them, not around them, Tay ordered. Straight through the gap between those 2 capital ships. That gap is only twice our width. Then we'd better not clip our wings. Tay's voice stayed calm even as his heart pounded. G aimed the Defiant at the narrow space between 2 massive Ravager capital ships. The aliens on the council station watched their sensors in horror as the tiny human vessel accelerated directly into what looked like certain death. The gap closed as the Ravager ships moved together to crush the intruder, but she was already firing thrusters, rolling the Defiant sideways. The ship slipped through the closing space with meters to spare, so close that the organic hull of one Ravager scraped against their shields with a screech of energy. Once through, G fired the Defiant's rear weapons at point-blank range into the exposed engines of one capital ship. The Ravager's propulsion failed and the massive vessel began drifting, unable to maneuver properly. That's how you kill something bigger than you, Day said. Over the Kaminger, go for the legs. But there were still dozens of enemy ships, and the Defiant couldn't fight them all alone. Warning alarms shrieked as acid projectiles hit their shields. The small ship shuddered under the impact. Shields at 40%, Hana reported, her voice tight with stress. Then, Commander Kwan's voice came through on the radio, defiant. This is Hammer. We're here and we're not happy about being late to the party. The destroyer Hammer dropped out of faster than light travel right in the middle of the Ravager fleet. It was 3 times the size of the Defiant, bristling with weapons, and it opened fire immediately. Missiles launched in waves, kinetic cannons roared, and Ravager ships began exploding. Now it's a fair fight, Kwan announced. 2 on 50. I like those odds. The 2 human ships worked together like they'd practiced for years. The Defiant drew enemy fire while the Hammer delivered devastating attacks. They moved in ways the Ravagers couldn't predict, using tactics that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated. Chaos on the Council station. Vrex watched the battle with growing amazement. They don't follow any standard combat doctrine. They're improvising constantly. They're adapting faster than the Ravagers can respond, Zoran observed. Every attack is different, every maneuver is unexpected. It's like watching predators hunt, said a small furred alien. They're not just fighting, they're hunting. The Guardian arrived 15 minutes later with Sue and her Marines. Instead of joining the space battle, the transport ship made a bold move. It approached the largest Ravager capital ship, the one that seemed to be coordinating the fleet. Guardian to all ships were going in, Sue announced. Boarding action in 3 minutes. Are they insane? An alien observer gasped. Yuna is still on the Council station. Explained. Council species fight from a distance. You use drones and automated systems. Humans fight up close when we need to. We board enemy ships. We fight hand to hand if necessary. But the interior of Ravager ships is toxic, acidic, designed to kill intruders. I know, Yuna said quietly. So do our Marines. They're going anyway. Guardian punched through the Ravager capital ship's organic hull using breaching pods, metal cylinders filled with Marines that drilled through armor and deposited soldiers inside enemy vessels. Sue led the first pod, and the sensation of punching through living flesh made everyone's stomach turn. Even through the metal walls, the pod doors exploded open and Marines poured into the Ravager ship. The interior was a nightmare, all pulsing walls and dripping acid. The air was thick with toxins that made their suit sensors scream warnings, but the Marines moved forward without hesitation. Advance, Sue ordered. Find the neural cluster. That's their command center. Ravager defender organisms appeared, creatures that looked like mobile tumors with teeth. The Marines opened fire, and the sound of kinetic rifles echoed through the organic corridors. The creatures fell, but more kept coming. Nari's suit took an acid hit that burned through one arm. Pain shot through her as the chemical touched her skin, but she kept fighting. Another Marine sung, pulled her behind cover while Minyu took her position in the firing line. I'm fine, Nari gasped, even though her arm felt like it was on fire. Keep moving. They fought their way deeper into the ship, leaving dead defender organisms behind them. The Marines used grenades to blast through sealed passages in combat, knives when the fighting got too close for rifles. The Council observers watched in silent shock as humans fought inside an environment that would kill most species. In minutes, they watched as wounded Marines refused to retreat as the humans Use their pain tolerance as a tactical advantage. They're not retreating, Rex said. Even injured, they keep advancing. Pain just tells them they're still alive, Una said, repeating what Sue had once told her, and while they're alive they fight. Sue's team reached the neural cluster, a massive organic brain that coordinated the Ravager capital ship. Without hesitation, Sue planted explosive charges around it while her Marines held off waves of defenders. Charges set, she announced. All teams extract now. The Marines ran back through the corridors they'd fought through, carrying their wounded behind them. The charges detonated, destroying the cluster. The entire Ravager capital ship began to die, its biological systems failing without central coordination. The Marines reached their boarding pods and launched, escaping just as the massive ship began breaking apart. They'd been inside for 19 minutes. Their suits were rated for 30 NARS damaged. Suit would have failed in another 3 minutes, but they'd succeeded. Largest Ravager ship was destroyed. In space, the battle continued. The Mercy, the medical frigate, arrived and immediately began helping damaged Council ships. Its defensive weapons added to the fight while its medical bays prepared to receive casualties. The Ravagers were now down to 37 ships, and they were starting to break formation. They'd never faced an enemy like this, one that attacked from every angle, that boarded their vessels, that fought with such furious creativity. Ta saw the enemy formation weakening. All human ships concentrate fire on their command cluster, break their coordination. The 4 human vessels attacked together, overwhelming the Ravager command ships. With combined firepower, without leadership, the remaining Ravager ships began fighting independently, no longer coordinated. The Council's defense fleet, which had been holding back in confusion, finally joined the battle. Emboldened by the human success, they attacked with renewed vigor. The Ravagers, caught between human aggression and the Council's superior numbers, began to retreat. They're running, G said in disbelief. We're winning, but victory came at a cost. Tay's console lit up with casualty reports. 7 Marines dead from the boarding action, 23 wounded. The Defiant had lost 2 crew members when a section decompressed. The Hammer reported hull breaches and engine damage. The Ravagers fled into hyperspace, leaving destroyed ships and debris behind. The battle was over. On the Defiant's bridge, Tay slumped in his chair, suddenly exhausted. They'd fought for almost 2 hours against impossible odds, and they'd won. Hana's voice broke the silence. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Chancellor Zoran. Tay straightened, pushing his exhaustion aside. Put it through. Zoran's crystalline face appeared on the screen. The Chancellor looked different somehow. Dimmer, humbled. Commander Tay, we watched everything. We saw what humans can do. We did what needed to be done. Tay replied simply. You saved us, Zoran said. We called you myths. We rejected your offer of help, yet you fought for us anyway, and your people died protecting ours. Why? Tay thought about the question for a moment. Because that's what humans do, Chancellor. We help those who need it, even if they don't believe in us. The medical frigate Mercy worked through the night, treating both human and alien wounded. The Council's medical staff stood amazed as they watched human doctors work. When supplies ran low, humans donated their own blood for transfusions to aliens with compatible biology. they shared. Their medicines, their equipment, even their food rations. Sue sat in the medical bay watching medics treat Nar's acid-burned arm. The young Marine would recover fully, but the scar would remain. 7 other Marines wouldn't recover at all. Their bodies lay in the Mercy's cold storage, wrapped in flags from Earth. They died protecting people who thought we were fake, Nari said quietly. Does that make their sacrifice less meaningful? No, Sue replied. It makes it more meaningful. They died proving we exist. They died showing the galaxy what humans are capable of. Within hours of the battle's end, recordings spread across the entire Galactic Council network. Every species saw the footage: human ships dancing through enemy fire, Marines boarding hostile vessels, wounded soldiers refusing to stop fighting. The images shocked and amazed billions of beings. The Council called an emergency session. For the first time in its history, the vote was unanimous. Before discussion even began, humanity would be invited to join, not as junior members or probationary species, but as full partners with immediate military authority. Ta stood in the medical bay, receiving treatment for minor injuries, when the invitation came through. Broken rib from when the Defiant had taken that acid hit. Nothing serious, but the alien doctors fussed over him. Anyway, you should rest, a small insectoid doctor told him through translator. Humans require sleep to heal properly. I will, Tay promised. After I attend the council session, the great council chamber, Tay walked to the speaker's platform. His uniform was torn and stained. His face showed exhaustion, but he stood straight and proud. Behind him on screens, the footage from the battle played on repeat. Zoran spoke first. Commander Tay, the Galactic Council extends its deepest apologies. We dismissed you as myths. We rejected your offer of help. Yet you saved us anyway. Humanity has proven itself not just real, but remarkable. Other council members spoke, each offering thanks and admiration, but Vex, the reptilian military commander, asked the question many were thinking. Commander Tay, if humans fight this fiercely for strangers, how terrifying are they when they fight for themselves? We dismissed you as myths because perhaps the truth was too frightening to accept. The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear the humans' answer. Tay took a moment to choose his words carefully. Commander Vrex is right to be cautious. Humans are dangerous. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight everything: predators, diseases, each other, even our own planet. We're very good at fighting because we've had millions of years of practice. He paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. But we also learned something else. Something that might be even more important. We learned when to stop fighting. We learned that cooperation is stronger than conflict. We learned to dream of reaching the stars instead of just conquering the next valley. Yuna joined him on the platform. The council is right, she said. Humans come from a death world. We're warriors by evolution and survivors by necessity. But we chose to be more than that. We chose to be explorers, scientists, artists, and friends. She gestured to the screen, showing the battle footage. Yes, we're capable of violence, but look closer at those recordings. See how we protected the wounded. See how we shared our resources. See how we fought to save people we just met. That's humanity. 2. A small furred council member Stood, but you still wage war on your own species. The records show human history is filled with conflicts. That's true, Tay admitted. We're not perfect. We still have disagreements, still have conflicts, but we stopped killing each other over them. We learned to talk instead of fight. It took us a long time, cost us millions of lives, but we learned, and we're still learning. Zoran's crystalline body pulsed with different colors. The council has voted to offer humanity full membership. We want you to train our forces, to teach us your tactics, but many of us are also afraid. What you showed us today was impressive but also terrifying. Fear is reasonable, Yuna said. If I were you, I'd be afraid of humans too, but being afraid of something and being enemies with something are different things. We don't want to be your enemy, we want to be your allies, and if we refuse this alliance, asked the gas cloud being, if we decide humanity is too dangerous to accept, Tay smiled, but his eyes were serious. Then we'll leave peacefully. We'll return to Earth and leave you alone, but the Ravagers won't leave you alone. They'll keep coming, keep destroying your worlds, and next time there won't be any humans to help you. That sounds like a threat, Rex said. It's not a threat, Sue said, entering the chamber with several of her Marines. They all bore visible injuries from the battle. It's just reality. You need us. Maybe that's uncomfortable. Maybe you don't like needing help from a species you thought was fake, but facts don't care about comfort. The council members talked among themselves in their various languages. Finally, Zoran spoke again. Humanity is accepted into the Galactic Council with full status. We request your assistance in training our forces and coordinating our defense against the Ravagers. We accept, Yuna said formally. Earth will send more ships, more personnel. But we're not here to take over. We're here to help you fight your own battles. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. More human ships arrived. Not just military vessels, but also science ships, colony transports, and trade vessels. Humans integrated into council society, bringing their strange customs, their odd food, and their infectious enthusiasm. Human military advisors trained council forces in aggressive tactics that had never been considered acceptable before. They taught aliens how to board enemy ships, how to fight at close range, how to turn disadvantages into advantages. The results were dramatic. At the Battle of Cathris Nebula, Council forces using human tactics destroyed a Ravager fleet 3 times their size. G found herself training pilots who had flown for centuries. She taught them that rules were guidelines, not laws, that sometimes the crazy maneuver was the right maneuver, that surviving was more important than looking graceful. They worked with alien engineers, showing them that simple solutions often worked better than complex ones, that redundancy was more important than efficiency, that sometimes the old ways were old because they worked. Sue's Marines trained alongside alien soldiers, teaching them that pain was temporary, but giving up was permanent. That loyalty to your squadmates was more important than loyalty to doctrine, that sometimes you had to get your hands dirty to win. One evening, G stood on an observation deck with a young Veltier pilot she'd been training. They looked out at the stars together. Were you really myths? The pilot asked. Did we really not believe you existed? G smiled. Yeah, you really didn't believe. I guess we sounded too impossible to be Real, and now we're just people. Strange people from a death world, but still just people trying to help. The pilot's crystalline body refracted the starlight into rainbows. I'm glad. You're real. I'm glad you proved us wrong. So are we, G said softly. Across council space, humanity's reputation shifted from terrifying myth to inspiring reality. They were the death world species who brought hope to the stars, the warriors who fought fiercely but celebrated peace, the survivors who shared their strength instead of hoarding it. Earth received messages from hundreds of species, all wanting to meet these remarkable humans. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges began. Friendships formed between beings who had nothing in common except a desire to survive and thrive. In the council chamber, a new motto was inscribed in hundreds of languages, including English: we are stronger together than apart. Tay, promoted to admiral, stood in the chamber and read the inscription. He thought about his crew, about the Marines who died, about the gamble that had paid off. They had walked onto the battlefield as myths and walked off as legends, but more importantly, they had walked off as friends and allies too. Species who once thought them impossible. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows. They were standing in the light, ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them next. Together,